It's one of the most famous ships in naval history, having been used by Captain Cook when he discovered the east coast of Australia more than 250 years ago. But a new study warns that a shipwreck believed to be the legendary HMS Endeavour is being devoured by shipworms. The shipwreck was found off the coast of Rhode Island in 2019. Following a decades-long mission to recover the iconic vessel, the majority of the vessel has been destroyed over the past 2 centuries and more, said Dr. Reuben Shipway, a lecturer in marine biology at the University of Plymouth, who has been exploring the shipwreck. If it is left, the shipworms will continue to eat away at its structure and we could be left with little, or nothing, to preserve the naval shipworm. But divers exploring the wreck have warned that what's left of its timber frame is gradually being eaten away by both shipworms and crustaceans known as gribbles. Or Teredo nivalis, is not actually a worm at all. This marine mollusk has a very elongated body with a tiny, reduced shell, which covers its anterior end and is often compared to a helmet. Small holes could be seen on the outside of the wreck's timbers, while the inside of the timbers resembled honeycomb. It is a bivalve mollusk, meaning two-shelled, like clams and mussels, but unlike other bivalves, shipworms do not need hard shells to shelter their bodies because they bore into pieces of wood, which protect the animals. Source: Harvard. Dr. Shipway traveled to Rhode Island this month to examine the shipwreck, and instantly spotted telltale signs of shipworm damage. Dr. Shipway brought a sample back to a lab at Harvard University to study it under a microscope. His analysis confirmed that Teredo nivalis, commonly known as naval shipworms, were devouring the wood. Naval shipworms are not exotic and are commonly found in the area, casting doubt on whether the shipwreck could have once been to the Pacific. Sadly, Dr. Shipway believes that without urgent action, the rest of the ship's remains could be lost forever. The Endeavour was used for one of the world's earliest scientific voyages and is responsible for amassing information that has shaped human history, he said. Its name has since been used for pioneering voyages of space discovery. If this wreck was on land, more would be done to preserve it, but because it is underwater, I believe there is a real danger of it being out of sight and out of mind. Unfortunately, preserving the shipwreck isn't as simple as lifting it from the seabed. As long as the timbers are exposed in the ocean, the shipworms will continue to eat away at them, Dr. Shipway explained. However, when they are submerged in sediment, the worms cannot access them. So submerging more of the wreck could offer a short-term solution.